I'm Varsha and I work for Flipkart. I've been working for Flipkart for the past 4.5 years. I'm a very passionate JS dev and I have been passionate about JavaScript for a very long time now. It's been around 5 years that I've been coding with JavaScript. Before that, I was in a government company, and that's how I found out my passion for JavaScript, because that's the place where I first learned how to do the UI kind of a thing. And I'm a dog mother, and I'm a crazy shopaholic. So yeah. I was not much interested in coding, even though I have an engineering degree. I wasn't interested in coding at all. So when I joined this government organization, it's called Bharat Electronics Limited. It's in Bangalore only. When I joined that, my first project was something around, to build something for the military, where we had to put something on the map, and then, they wanted to plot their armor or their brigade or the battalion over there, and we had to draw that all on the UI. And that's when I found that, this is something cool and this is something that I can actually pursue and do. So that's when I started getting into the depth of coding, and I started learning from the basic and how it's done, and that really excited me, and I think that's where my journey started. There wasn't a process as such. While in my previous company, I had already decided that I wanted to switch. I wanted to switch to a company which gives an in-depth work culture around the UI itself, because there are not many companies who give so much importance to front end right now. Maybe they have a full stack role or as such, but not a UI niche role. So I wanted to target a few companies which do provide that platform, and the e-commerce companies did come to my mind, like Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal. Those were my targets, and I had a couple of friends working around in these companies who told me, that the front end field here is quite explorable and I can work whatever I want to on. How I targeted, I didn't target any company as such, but yes, I started preparing from the JavaScript basics so that I could go ahead and build a career for myself in the same field. I also put out my resume on a lot of sites like Naukri, because it was 5 years ago, so we didn't have like a LinkedIn this thing. So I had put it down to Naukri, and I had actually consulted a few consultants who could forward my resume out there, and I had a few friend referrals as well. As I said, that my friends were working for a good companies, and I asked them if they could refer me to their companies as well, and that's how I landed up with a call from Flipkart and Snapdeal both. And the consultant from Flipkart actually asked me to give the interview here, and that's how I went. So React wasn't something of a choice. For the starters, when I joined Flipkart, I was in the customer experience team, and our product was on Angular. And we had a lot of problems with Angular 1. We had not with the framework per se, but how the framework was being abused. We had a lot of problem with how engineers were trying to code with Angular, and we could actually see that a lot of spaghetti code was being written, where we wanted something like a framework, where we wanted a good code to be written. There was a spaghetti code. Second thing was we wanted to scale it more to Myntra and Jabong. We had recently acquired these companies, and we wanted our application to be scalable to all of these companies as well. It was the customer care agency, the agency on a screen, and then they get back to you. They get back to the customer saying what the issue is or whatever. So we wanted to extend it to Myntra and Jabong, and React was just out there when we started, and we started exploring with React, and we found it quite suitable for our needs. And React brought us a lot closer to JavaScript than Angular ever did, because Angular as a framework is so huge. It covers up all the basics of JavaScript, and it doesn't actually let you work with JavaScript as such. It has a very Angular-like pattern, but with React we actually found that we could work well with JavaScript as well. A lot of good things about React. It was very popular. The community was huge, and we had a lot of support with the community. When we started talking to people like Dan Abramov, they were very, very, very responsive, and they used to help us out a lot, and that's how we got into React. On a very, very large scale application, JavaScript tends to get a bit complicated when you want to manage your state, when you want to manage how many times your content has been rendered. You want it more performant. And when it comes to the performance perspective, I think that's how React works very well, because all the performance has been taken care of. Plus, I have never seen a community as huge as React. As a community of devs, there are so many React developers out there that in case you're stuck, you have a lot of people to help you around. A lot of people are, jumping into React and they're trying out things. And the core community itself, right? The core React team at Facebook itself is so helpful that it doesn't feel like you're alienated from the language at all. And so I wouldn't say it is simple, but I would say that the community is so helpful that you can get around things with React, and since it's performant, it's all the more helpful for you. Our customer care application, the 2.0, which we released on a bigger scale with Myntra and Jabong and Flipkart into perspective. That application is itself in React that uses a React and a Redux based architecture where Redux maintains the state and React maintains your view layer. Apart from that, so I've been changing the teams a lot within Flipkart itself. So I've worked for around 3 teams now. Then I switched to M3, and our ads platform, the Neo platform itself, was built in React. So that is the second part of it. And recently, I wouldn't call it recently, but a year ago, I joined the mobile web team in Flipkart, which is the MSite team, the Flipkart Lite team. So that was already built with React. And we are now experimenting on React Native, as in let's develop our app using React Native and how it would port as React Native Web on our flipkart.com. So yes, we are experimenting with that. So yeah, it's around 3-4 projects that I've contributed to that are in React. No matter how many talks you see, right? Unless you try something by yourself, you don't get stuck. And I think that's the primary learning part of a process, getting stuck and, figuring a way out of that position. I think that gives you a lot of learning into any particular language. So I think I advocate for that. Build things on your own. Try to get stuck. Have failures because that's how you learn, and that's how we can go ahead and build greater things. I would just say that learn your basics very well, because those are the building blocks for anything that you're going to build later on. I wouldn't advocate for any tech framework from the beginning itself. React, Angular, Vue, they're all great. But just start learning from the scratch. Have your JavaScript skills very well, because that's how you'll understand how these frameworks or libraries are being built. And see, right now, why React, why Vue, why Angular? You might read it somewhere, and then it might strike to you that okay, this is better because this has that. But unless you play around a lot with JavaScript and the building blocks of JavaScript, you'll not know for yourself why things are better. So for young programmers, I would always suggest to start from the scratch, learn your JavaScript well, and then move on to libraries and frameworks, because that's how you'll find out the differences or what is great for your application, right? Every application is different. We have a new framework, Svelte, coming in, right? So there are a lot of things out there. So try it all and then find what suits you or your application the best.